it out, and it's not a movie that I would sit there and watch again. But I definitely did not. I don't think it's trash, and I got a couple points to that. But it's definitely like I didn't sit there after the movie and was like, man, this was a waste of 3 hours, bro. We could have been doing something else. But here's my thing. Like when I first walked out, you know, we talked about it, and I had my opinions of how it wasn't all that great. I don't think
we briefly talked about
it.
She gave me like 2 minutes. She didn't want to discuss
I didn't because I wanted it. Right.
So
I don't think. At first, I thought that maybe it was just Robert Peterson, whatever. You guys know who I'm talking about. Edward, right?
Yeah, I was about to say.
But I feel like he played the role well. So I was trying to think when I got home if there was any other actors that could have played that role that would have convinced me that the role would have been portrayed better. So I don't think it was so much the acting, but so much the actual role of the character of Batman.
So the writing.
Yes.
I don't think we needed a malnutrition Batman.
But you know what? There were certain things about the movie, because he wasn't malnutrition.
He was so...
He had muscle on him, but there was this one scene that I did want to bring up.
Like the crow.
Where he was pushing the table, and so the angle was from the back, and you saw that he had scars on his back, and there was almost like 2 slight humps.
Oh, spoiler alert, by the way. If you haven't seen the movie, we about to spoil it.
Oh yeah,
we've given
please
y'all
turn it off right now.
Ample amount of time to watch this. Sorry.
Right.
We've given y'all ample amount of time, but definitely spoiler alerts. Sorry.
Yeah. So he had like these little humps right on his back, like where his shoulder blades are supposed to be. And when my initial thought when I saw that, I was like, oh, I get it, because he's Batman, and it kind of looks like if at any moment wings would sprout from those spots. But he was still fit. Why are you laughing at me? I'm being serious.
Because I feel like you're reaching. I don't.
No. I'm not reaching. Okay. Everything has to be done on purpose.
Okay.
Right. And he was still buff. I mean, he wasn't like all the other, ones, but he was still fit. Now, the first time I noticed it, though, was with the Penguin, which I made the comment on you. With Penguin, he had a scar on his face, and when you looked at him at face forward, face on, it almost looked, with his nose and the cut, that it was a beak. So I think they were very clever with helping, like, getting them to match the characters. Now, the Riddler I did not care for at all.
Why not?
Because he was a kid. Like, he was just, like, this dorky kid. And...
See, and that's my problem with that character specifically. These people do exist. Those type of...
I know it.
Those type of serial killer, they tried to make them like a Zodiac killer type deal.
I get
Those people do exist. But it was just so over the top for me. Like, him, the way he was laughing when they found, like, it just was too much to me.
So, you want to know my opinion why I think we didn't care for this Batman?
Yes.
Here's my opinion. One, I'm a lot older than Jamal. But I grew up on Catwoman being Michelle Pfeiffer and the Riddler being oh my god, of course I was gonna say Ace Ventura.
Jim
Carrey. So, like, in my mind, right, these characters, when I was first introduced to them, these were these iconic, huge, cartoon-like, right, cartoonish characters. And so now they're changing it, and I get what they're doing. They're trying to be a little bit more dark, and go that way versus being kid friendly, but more, just dark for it to reach a different crowd.
They're doing that because Marvel has monopolized superhero movies, right. And they do it so well in so many different ways that DC is trying to find a different angle,
right,
and appeal to a different audience.
Which I think will work.
They're failing miserably.
See, with this one, yes, right? Because, like I said, these iconic characters, and a good example that I put was, because I was talking about this at home, was like the It movie, right? To this day, I am terrified of clowns because of that movie. But I also watched that movie when I was 5, 6, 7, 8. I couldn't even tell you when I watched it. I I go back and I watch the same movie now and it's cheesy, but it left such an impact on me as a child that the impact is what continued to go with me over the years, and I think that's very similar.
But I don't think the movie was for kids, though. I mean...
No. What I'm saying is the correlation of how fearful it was back then, and I watch it now as a grown adult, and I'm like, that was cheesy. But it was just emotion, so I feel like with the Riddler, like Jim Carrey, you can't get better than that.
Right.
You know, I didn't care for the Catwoman. I thought she was gorgeous, don't get me wrong, but I didn't care for her character because Michelle Pfeiffer. So you compare to what you know. And then the Joker killed it for me. You just made me watch it with Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
To me,
they nailed that
100%.
And it was dark. They nailed it.
That's what I'm saying. When you're saying that they're failing miserably, I don't think so, because they executed that film so good. It was great to the point. And so I think I was expecting, when I heard that it was dark, I expected Joaquin Phoenix dark. I expected that, like, if this is going to be adult, for adults, and that's what I was expecting. So I think what ruined the movie for me, it wasn't the movie itself. It was just all my expectations around the movie. The Joaquin Phoenix, that Joker being that dark, and then these iconic characters from when I was younger, seeing them and introduced for the first time.
I think what they did incorrect here is, first of all, I'm not the biggest DC fan. They have characters that I really, really liked as a kid. I really love Green Lantern. I love Flash. I love Batman and Superman as a kid. I really love these characters. They were iconic to me as a child. But every single time, Aquaman, every single time I hear that they put out a movie, before I get a chance to go to it, I hear that it was trash. Like, they seem to drop the ball every single time, so I have no interest in seeing them ruin some of my favorite characters.
Right.
And this particular Batman, I feel like Batman is DC's Spider-Man. They cannot help but make more Batman movies.
100%.
They are drilling this into the ground. But we're in 2022 now, so everybody's trying to make more culturally relevant movies that are like today's time or reflect today's time. And I felt like they did too much. They tried to do too much. Like, Penguin is a bad guy, then every single police officer and politician is corrupt, then Catwoman is back and forth between being good and being corrupt, and then you have the Riddler, who's like, it was just, they tried to do too many different things, and they also tried to hit on too much social commentary. That's something that Marvel does a really good job at, even though I feel like Marvel is pandering in movies. Like in Endgame, when they brought all the women together and they was like, I audibly gasped in the movie. I was like, oh my gosh, no, they did not just do this.
Right.
But like, that's pandering. But this movie felt like they was trying to do too much social commentary, like the Riddler and mental health, the corrupt politicians, and it just seemed like too much to me. And as we was watching the movie, mind you, I'm very well aware that it's a 3-hour movie. It's so many spots that the movie could have just ended. Like, I thought the movie could have been over after they caught the Riddler. They could have easily just ended it there. But then it's like, oh no, I'm not done. I'm gonna flood the city as well. And at that point, when he like, I'm gonna flood the city as well, I was like, well, please just win. Please, like, I would have some satisfaction if he just win. Like, cause it's like, how can you didn't stop the bombs from going off, so the bombs go off, and then you got all of these people in the center, and they finna get shot at, and it's like, how can you overcome this? How can you stop the island from drowning, like from sinking? Mm-hmm. Like, at this point, he has to just lose, but somehow, oh no, we're just gonna get past it. They got a female black mayor. Like, what? Cool. Like, that's cool.
That's cool.
But also, like, y'all don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to pander to us. Catwoman is half black, half white. She like Halle Berry when she played the role. Mm-hmm. That's cool. But you don't have to try to pander to every specific demographic throughout your movie. I thought the way that they handled the Joker was amazing. Like, they wasn't very minimum characters. It's about 4 or 5 main characters in that movie.
That movie was insane.
If
you have not watched it, I recommend.
There's no way you watching this. There's no way you watch Batman and you didn't see the Joker. There's no way. But also, that's the other thing. Marvel is doing an excellent job of hyper focusing on the villains and the backstory of the villains.
Yes. And I think that's why I like Joker so much, because when we were introduced to it originally back in the day, right, when I was a kid, you just had these villains. You had the superhero, and then you had the villain just pop up out of nowhere. The superhero wins. And I just love the other story. The other side of it. Like, the Joker wasn't just born the Joker. He was forced into becoming the Joker. And so that movie with Joaquin Phoenix,
That's it right there.
the whole movie was him becoming the Joker.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it wasn't even him. It was him becoming it, and
that's another.
And you root for him.
That's
like,
another
you're like,
thing that's annoying.
What?
At the end of the movie, they basically alluded to the Joker, which
Yeah,
is just throwing away the whole like.
I didn't like that at all, because that Joker was just like, for a minute I was like, is this another Riddler? By how the conversation went, and then you heard him
like Two-Face or something.
Then you heard him laughing, and I'm like,
yeah,
is this trying to be the Joker? I was very disappointed at that, because they did such a good job. Like,
and here's the thing with back to the Batman movie, something that I really, really noticed that I was like, oh shoot, that's it right there, while you was just talking, is Marvel and DC did it with the Joker, have been focusing on the villains. And it felt like they really, really wanted to focus on the Riddler in this movie. Like, they wanted to focus on the Riddler, but they made the character so shallow. Like, not his character traits. I'm talking, like, by him being overly mentally ill, there's no depth to the character. Like, there's no reason for us to listen to the character,
right,
for us to hear the character out, because he's sick. He's something wrong with him. Even, like,
they could have definitely played out his story a little bit more, because the backstory of him doing what he did was because they were ignored and gave so much attention to Batman, or Bruce Wayne. But I feel like they would have developed that side in that story. Maybe have a scene of him, how it affected him, and what made him become so dark, and then decide to, look, I have to go after all these people that caused this one thing. I think it would have had a little bit more depth, like you're saying.
And he also was like, I don't even think about it like this. There are sick, really, really sick sociopath or psychopath, whatever. Like, there are really sick serial killers, like a Ted Bundy. But even the Ted Bundy story is very fascinating because of the human being.
Right.
The Riddler lacked any human being characteristics. They just made him a vessel for violence.
Right.
He didn't have to be that way. He could have easily, very, very easily, been a deep character. Even the Zodiac killer that they was mimicking him after was deeper than this. Like, it just felt like it lacked and his logic behind it wasn't even good enough to me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They touched on it very briefly, why he was doing what he was doing. You know, when he had the conversation with Bruce Wayne, explaining, you know, why he had to come after all these families. So if they would have developed that story a little bit more, I think then you would have had some kind of compassion towards him and what he was doing. Like, when you hear it, you're like, oh, well, you know, he's right. These people are corrupt. They should have been. But I think they could have added more emotion to that, to link him, to get him a little bit more grounded with the character, so that you're actually torn between who do you want to win.
Yeah, like, you know? Black Panther, you was like, whoa, Killmonger makes a really good point. Like, maybe we should be helping other countries. And you're like, well, but T'Challa makes a fantastic point too. Like, we remain safe by being in our own little bubble. And I felt like, as he was taking down each person, they kept saying, like, they was talking about who's the rat, and this like, what's the secret that these people are. I felt like all of it ended up being super shallow. That's another thing. Falcone was another villain. It was too many villains.
Yeah.
It really was like
It really
five
was.
different villains. And at the bottom of it all was so very shallow. Like,
Yeah.
it was like an onion. And they just made us keep peeling back layers after layers after layers. And
Yeah,
the
nothing
payoff
left.
wasn't there.
Yeah.
The payoff was gone. I was like, at some point, as he was taking down different pieces, I was like, oh man, he must have really good motivation behind this. Like, I'm pumped up for the motivation and the reason behind this. And it just was like a deflated balloon.
Yeah,
It's
no,
just like,
absolutely. I agree with you.
I don't-
agree with you.